Alrighty, I think these are all starting in release order, all the way to the latest one. Yeah, for the most part, I think. I added these two right here, Jonah and Pirates, because they were not in this original list, which I think is a little weird, but it's fine. Anyway, yeah, where's God when I'm scared? Very first VeggieTales. Man, this is hard to think right now. I really like this one, honestly. It's a very good show, especially for what it was. Like, it was, groundbreaking at the time because, like nothing's really ever been done like it before. As far as, like, the CGI goes and the lattice deformation. That's the tech that was used to actually design the characters that could actually make them hop and wobble, If you guys watch the behind the scenes, like I do sometimes a lot, that's how you'll figure out that that's what they used. But yeah, no, it's a great show overall. It definitely paved the way for a bunch of other VeggieTales in the future. I really love the Daniel and the Lion's Den segment, which is just great. The Wise Men, Oh No, What We're Gonna Do song is perfect. Honestly, the show feels very big, like already, just because of, the set design. There's only like a couple guys working on the show, like barely anyone, and they really pulled it off. The junior segment itself is also really good too. It's definitely like the most classic part when you think of this the title card and all that. I would probably put it in. I'll put it in the pretty good category. It's good for what it was. I think it was obviously still trying to find its stride as well. But with the humor and all that, I think it did a great job for what it was trying to do. So I think it goes in pretty good category. All right, next one up. God wants me to forgive them. Okay, so this one's a bit of a weird one for me because this show specifically, I did not grow up watching. Like, I had friends and family, or even my own church, like, had this, in their closet, and sometimes, they just put it on, right? And that's how I know the show. I just remember it when I was very young, though. It was this is a very older show that the company produced, obviously because it's the second one that they created. So lots of nostalgia going to other people's houses and watching this, but not my own. So that's my personal connection to it. But as far as the show itself goes, I think it's okay. It's not as good as Where's God When I'm Scared, in my opinion. I honestly don't love the Grapes of Wrath segment itself. It's just, I don't know. I don't know if it's the pacing or maybe even just the characters themselves. They're just, I don't know. They're a bit too childish, which I know it's a kid's show. It's a child show, right? But I don't know. I feel like there was way better episodes that it was still meant for kids, but the characters felt more fully realized, and it felt like you're looking up to these people, right? Or these characters, these veggies, right? Whereas in this one specifically, I feel like I'm looking down to them, like they're, even when I'm a kid, like they're still like younger than me, like they're kind of, they're not so smart, they're not fully thinking properly, right? That's I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's sort of my takeaway on it. The second segment with Larry's Lagoon is fun. I honestly just enjoy Bob and Larry being the leads of the show more than Junior. I'm not the biggest Junior fan. Like, he's fine for what he is, but I don't think he's a great lead in my opinion. So I think that's why it bumps down a bit more for me. And also, of course, there's no silly song in this one. So, not that that's a bad thing, it's just there's no silly song in this, which I think they realized later on that they really needed to keep doing for all the future shows. It does have the Forgive-O-Matic, which I honestly think is the best part of the show. The Forgive-O-Matic is honestly a really good skit. But yeah, anyway, I think it goes in the average category. It's fine. It's not bad. It's not great. It's fine for what it is. Okay, moving on. Are You My Neighbor? This one's also sort of in the same category where I did not. Maybe I did own this when I was a kid. I was really young, so honestly, I don't remember very well. All I know is that I watched it in other places other than my house. So there's the personal connection for you right there. This one's also a fine one. It's honestly sort of the same one, or the same category as God Wants Me to Forgive Them. Like, again, I'm sort of feel like I'm being, like I'm looking down on these characters rather than looking up to them as like, you know, role models or whatever, you know, like they're much more like they're my age, you know, they feel like all my age, which I understand. Junior is meant to be your age when you're watching this, right? But again, I just feel like they actually cracked the code or the formula for later on in these shows, again, for kids, but again, understanding of how they can act more adult or older per se, you know, and you can still have just as much value in the morals and the message and also the entertainment while also, you know, looking up to the characters more. I just feel like this one is much more, this is the only exception where I say it's only much more baby-like, especially with just the main, the Star Trek parody itself, more with the, you know, the whole plot with that. So it's not my favorite personally in that sense. It's sort of the same thing as Grapes of Wrath. It's just, you know, I feel like I'm I'm looking down on these characters rather than looking up, if that makes sense. And that's not meant to be a pun because I know they're vegetables and I should be looking down at them because they're smaller than me, but you understand my point. It's just not a great character analysis of where they were at this point. What's the next one? Flipper Lou in this segment is actually pretty good. It's a fun one. It's a very nice Dr. Seuss parody, and it's cute, right? This is actually a pretty good way to put it. It's just a very cute show overall, right? It's fine. So I'd probably put it honestly, right beside God Wants Me to Forgive Them. It's perfectly, they perfectly align with each other. Yeah, let's put them right here. I think I was considering if I want to put in front, but no, I think it's fine for where it is right here. Okay. All right, now we're getting excited here. Rack Shack and Benny. This is a really good one. This is a classic by many people's standards of, you know, of the fandom. And it's obvious to see why. The songs are great. The performances by all the actors, you know, all three of them, I think, because Phil and Mike do most of the voices, and then there's Lisa, who plays Junior. But yeah, the animation also was a huge step up compared to these last three shows. Like, the animation was, you know, it was groundbreaking for the first one. The second one and the third one were fine, you know, like they sort of stayed in that same bubble, right? But then fourth really started to break its boundaries of like, you know, what they can do with action sequences, you know, or, you know, building tension, you know, especially if you know the actual story itself from the Bible, you know, it's intense, you know, this could be pretty intense for some kids, you know, and I think this is actually when they actually could start to experiment with, you know, getting a bit more dramatic, you know, and also while still keeping the charm and the goofiness of the veggie formula, you know, and not to mention just the music, right? The music in this show is so good, more so just for the silly songs. The Good Morning George is so good. I started listening to the instrumental of that recently, and I don't realize what Kurt Heineke is doing in the background most of the time until I realize the instrumental. I'm like, oh my word, this guy is he's popping off. He's just going off the whole time. Yeah, so Rack, Shack, and Benny is a very memorable one for me. Even though, again, I actually didn't own this one as well, but it's still stuck with me, right? Like, that's how big of an impact it made for people. Even if you, like, didn't own it, and you watch it somewhere else, you know, or at church, or your friend's house, or, like, wherever, right? It's stuck with you. This one's stuck with you for a long time, right? It's ingrained in your memory, especially with the bunny song, you know? The bunny song is iconic. Also, Dance with the Cucumber 2 is a great silly song as well. A really fun one. I think this pretty much goes in the very good category, I would have to say. So let's bump it up there. Oh, no, don't go there. You're not average. You ain't no average. You ain't no average show. Okay, there we go. So, pretty good list so far. We have a lot more to get to, so let's keep going. Dave and the Giant Pickle. Okay, this is also a really fun one. I would probably grade it on the same length as Rack, Shack, and Benny. Just for the same reasons. Again, like, it can be intense sometimes. Actually, no, I take that back. It's not that intense. It's much more silly and goofy now the more I think about it. But it can be, it's just a fun, silly show, and that's exactly what the creators were trying to go off of, you know, because Rack, Shack, and Benny, from what I hear, like, really took a lot out of them at this point. Like, they were they were exhausted. This show took a long time to make, and it was a lot of energy and time and sweat and tears, you know. But this one, simple, silly, and I think it did it very well. I I think Rack Shack and Benny for me is a bit higher, just because I like more the tension, for what there is, with Mr. Nezer, being sort of more of an actual, villain. Goliath himself, is great, in this show. Being a giant pickle is just, it's really funny. I think this is by far the most funniest show so far, as far as all these shows go. I think it's definitely the funniest. There's some good recurring gags in here that I really like. Love My Lips, honestly, is probably the funniest out of all these silly songs too, honestly. So let's put it, yeah, I'll put you behind Rack Shack and Benny. That sounds about right. Okay, nice, moving on. Toilet Save Christmas. This is also a really fun one too. Again, back to the personal connection story. I didn't own this one as a kid, but I did have my grandparents who owned this when they lived far away from me at the time. So every time we come to visit them, we would have the whole family get-togethers, right? And at some point while we were there during the weekend, we'd always throw this one on on the VHS, and it was so much fun. This is a great Christmas special. This is their first official VeggieTales Christmas special, which honestly, for making their first one, they did a really good job. This one was also, I think at this point, the most ambitious one they did. Like, it was probably up there next with Rack Shack and Benny, Mr. Nezer sort of, or not technically Mr. Nezer, but another Mr. Nezer prototype in the same Nezer skin, is the villain. Very similar plot beats, with Junior, Bob, and Larry, get into trouble and, just invading the toy factory and, doing all that fun stuff, right? And also, again, of course, the main message itself of, telling the birth of Jesus is done so well. It's honestly, it's actually pretty incredible how well they do it, despite the fact that vegetables are talking and they're telling you about this. They do it in a very nice, sweet way. And also that climax too is just incredible. Like the whole penguin scene with, the the whole bridge is great. Anyway, so I think I would probably put this. See, I think it's good, but it's not the most memorable one. It's not the one I always go back to. So I'd probably put it in. Let's put it in the pretty good category. I think I'll put it ahead of Where's God When I'm Scared. This is a pretty good one. I do enjoy this one a lot, but it's not, it's not the one I think is awesome. It's a good VeggieTales, right? Anyway, moving on. Like I said, we're not doing the sing-alongs, so I will not be counting this one, unfortunately. Even though the songs in there are great, but I will be grading those in the actual shows themselves. So, moving on from that, we get to go into this bad boy right here. Yeah. You are going to the absolute best, my friend. Yeah, LarryBoy in the Fifth from Outer Space is legitimately such a good VeggieTales. And I don't want to put you in average, but that's all I can do with my mouse. So I have to do it again, go up. There we go. Okay. LarryBoy in the Fifth from Outer Space is so incredible. It's actually the most terrifying VeggieTales. Is that true? Actually, you know what? I'll save my opinions for what the most terrifying VeggieTales is later on for you guys if you want to hear that. But it's definitely a contender for like some of the most scariest ones, especially if you're a kid. If you're like 5 or 6 watching this, you will be terrified by some of the scenes in this. Like the Fib, when he's fully grown, he is actually terrifying. Like the voice, I can't exactly remember the voice actor who played him right now. But man, he's so intimidating. When he grabbed Junior, and again, like the score is just booming too. It shook you. It shook you. It made you have some wild dreams later on. And it was a little hard to escape. Anyway, the show itself though is so well done. This is definitely, again, I keep saying this for lots of these, but I think up to this point, this was the most ambitious one they did. Probably up there with Rack Shack and Benny or Toilet Save Christmas. This is just a wild show, and they really tried to take it up a notch. And I think later on they actually tried to make it very clear that after the what's it called? I think once you have not the backlash, but just the critiques from the parents, I would say they made it pretty prevalent that the kids weren't doing so good when they saw this, because it scared a lot of little young ones. So I think later on, Phil and Mike decided to actually produce these in a more like spin-off category. You know, they actually were considering actually taking the VeggieTales logo off, which would have been interesting. But that's also why later on in Rumor Week they actually took off the countertop scenes, because they wanted to make it very distinct that this is like a very different category of VeggieTales. You know, it's so you know what you're getting into, right? Because this first one made such a huge impact on so many people because it was scary. It was like, just again, like when you're a kid and you're watching this, that fib is terrifying, right? And I have to talk about this music for a second. The music in this, what Kurt did, and his orchestra, like it wasn't a huge orchestra as far as I know. It was maybe like a 20 piece, something like that, maybe even a 30. It wasn't a gigantic one, but what he did with the vocals and the opera singers, or sorry, the men's choir, I mean, they just went off on this. That's honestly what made the film so scary, because the music is so effective. The whole LarryBoy theme itself is so good. Like I honestly play it on just whenever I can, when I'm washing dishes or whatever, because it's such an impactful score. Like it's almost like a military march. You know, they have the snare drum and like, you know, the booms and the crashes. It's not your conventional or a typical superhero score. You know, it's very unique and also done with a low budget, which I think is saying a lot for these guys. And they were pushing themselves hard, and I just think they did such a good job. I also think of the visuals of this film as well. The visuals are so beautifully. They're so beautiful. I just have to get it off my chest right now. I'm going to go more on a tangent for the ones I really love, because they're the ones I love, right? So LarryBoy in the Fifth from Outer Space has great visuals. The clouds, the sunset, the atmosphere. Bumbleyburg feels like it's a smaller town, you know, like I think the animators really wanted to go, you know, they tried their best to make it a big town, but I think for the budget they had, it was a small town, right? But it was effective though. There's still a civilization living here with the few vegetables they have. But it works though. It works. And I think that goes back to the actual art direction of the show. The way how you see everything is designed, from down to the costumes, just the way to how the veggies are animated, you know, Junior's house, you know, even though it's bright and colorful, you know, like in its daytime, you still feel like something's a little off, you know, like something just feels a little different about it, you know, and I love that feeling you get from this. It's so good. Okay, anyway, I'm done going off on LarryBoy. I will probably be back. I will probably keep doing it more for a few other shows I love, so keep that in mind, okay? LarryBoy in the Fifth from Outer Space is so good. Okay, moving on. Josh and the Big Wall. All right, so we got Josh and the Big Wall. This one is a fun VeggieTales. It is definitely more in the pretty good category for me. It's not as good as these two. I think it's, again, it does the story perfectly for what it's trying to do. Really good gags, really good jokes. And it still doesn't take away from the actual message itself. The silly song is really fun as well. Say Boo is just a good time, you know. It's a really good beat too. I think it was actually the first time, like, when it started playing, I was bopping my head. I was like, ooh, little 4-year-old me was going nuts on this beat. It was like, ooh, some percussion. I like it. Yeah, I think Josh and the Big Wall overall, that rhymes. I think that goes in the pretty good category. I'm going to put it right ahead of Toy Save Christmas. Or you know what? Let's put it behind, actually. I think Toy That Saves Christmas is actually a bit better, in my opinion. Just for the vibes. I like the vibes of Toy That Saves Christmas. Yeah, it seems pretty accurate to me so far. I like this. Let me know if you guys agree with what I have to say right now so far. Okay. Madame Blueberry. Again, also really fun. I really love the color palette in this. Again, going off visuals, I'm a very visual person, so the color palette in this is very nice. I think this is the first show that Mike Naraki also directed, who also voices Larry the Cucumber. Like, he did lots of co-writing and, you know, co-producing and all that. next to Phil, but I think this is Madame Blueberry's the first official show he actually took into his hands, and he did a really good job for his first one. He did a great job. This is also the first song that lots of people also get to recognize next to Hairbrush, which is also from Are You My Neighbor, right here. Cheeseburger. Cheeseburger is probably the second most well-known VeggieTales song, I think, from this catalog, just because Mr. Lunt is quite the personality. But yeah, no. Madame Blueberry, overall, the show, it's a great message, really fun characters, a really fun story. You know, I put this in the classic VeggieTales category, so I'm going to say it's pretty good. It's a pretty good one. I like it. Let's put it... does it go behind Josh or in front of Josh? I think it goes in front. This is hard, honestly. Josh and the Big Wall and Madame Blueberry are sort of the same quality to me, honestly. So it doesn't make much difference. So I'm probably going to put it right behind it. But yeah, honestly, it depends on the day. I'm feeling either Madame Blueberry or Josh and the Big Wall. It doesn't really matter. For now, it's behind. Okay, moving on. End of Silliness. We're not counting this one because it's also a sing-along, so we're skipping on. LarryBoy and the Rumor Weed. Okay. This one is a very interesting one to me because I like it a lot, but it is nowhere near as good as Fib for me personally. Fib from Outer Space is just going off on a whole new level. Part of that is probably nostalgia, honestly. I'm sorry. It's just what I grew up with. I know Rumor Weed is more regarded as people's like top 5 or maybe top 3 favorites. Honestly, I don't think I would put it in my top 5, honestly. I think it's still really good. A few things that pull back for me is that the plot is pretty recycled from the first one, honestly. You know, villain getting bigger because kids are doing wrong things, basically. And, like, it's fine for a plot, you know, right? It's pretty obvious that, you know, Big Idea was trying to go bigger in scope, even if the message is sort of told in the same way. I think they're trying to go for making an actual movie at this point. So that's why they're just trying to see how big they could go with their theatrical shows, with their direct-to-DVD shows or in VHS, and then eventually they would go to Jonah. I think that was Phil's original vision, but now they did a few more in between before they did Jonah. So I think that's why, again, Rumor Weed is good because it's big in scope, right? But it's also redundant plot-wise because the plot, in my opinion, I don't think it was the main focus of what they were trying to teach. They were just trying to go for a bigger visual, a bigger look, which is cool. It does pay off. It looks good. It's a very good-looking show, and the characters are fun, and they do cool things, and there's lots of fun action sequences in this one because it's LarryBoy. But it's not as good as Fib. So I'm gonna put it in. Let's put it in the very good category. I think very good, or maybe pretty good. We'll put it in pretty good. Not average. Let's put it in. I'll put it ahead. I'll put it ahead of Toy That Saved Christmas. This is a good one, but I'll put it in the top of pretty good. These two are still a bit better in my opinion, though. All right, moving on. King George and the Ducky. Okay. I really love King George and the Ducky. This is where they decide to go tell the story of David and Bathsheba in a kid's story. And they did it. They did it in a really good way. And I like how they sort of hide it, but then they kind of make it very obvious near the end of what story they're telling. You know, once Podgrape comes in and sings a song. No, it's great. The guys knew what they were doing, and they did it really well. And I think, honestly, this is one of the most mature lessons that Big Idea has actually produced with teaching about selfishness, because, you know, like the stories about sharing, you know, from Lyle the Kindly Viking, you know, or even some of the other ones, you know, like what's a good one? Any of the earlier shows, you know, like there's some good ones, you know, like Are You My Neighbor is a good one. God wants me to forgive them is also a really good message as well, even if I'm not actually fond of the show as much as the message personally. But again, I think this goes to King George and the Ducky, where the message is so good and it matches with its level of entertainment. It go far and beyond its reach, and it overachieves. That's a good way to put this. This one really overachieves. The look of the show itself as well is astounding. It's really where they actually start to texture lots of details in the sets and the characters. Like everything feels much more lived in and real. Like it feels like you could actually like be in this environment. There's lots of other VeggieTales that feel like that, like Fit from Outer Space feels like that. Even like Mad and Blueberry, like these shows that feel very like, you know, colorful, and the set designs feel very, you know, well designed. They're not just cutouts, you know, they're fully fleshed out places. Like they're very visually appealing, and those are the places you feel like you could actually have dreams in, you know, because they're that realized. So I think King George definitely fits that bill. So I think it's going to go right in front of Rack Shack and Benny for me. I think they did such a good job with this one, for tackling such a mature message, and also for such a mature story, if anything, as well. Yeah, no, they did a great job. And also, the silly song, Barber Manatee, is so good. It's one of the funniest ones to me. I think it's probably like in the top 5 silly songs for me personally. And yeah, they do such a good job. Okay, and moving on, we got Esther. All right, Esther is also very, very visually well done as a show. Again, just the characters and the setting, like even just the opening of the actual show itself, the visuals are just off the chart. Like this is again when they're really trying to go bigger, right? This is in the time when Rumorweed, King George were all being released around this time of the year, I think. And you can definitely tell that the company's getting bigger, you know, the budget's getting bigger, you know, they're trying to shoot for a movie, you know, they're trying to go for Jonah, right? At this point. And it looks really good, you know, the characters' movements are very fluid, you know, like this feels like the in-between stage between, you know, the older shows here, where, you know, the veggies, obviously you can see them do what they do, but they're much more jankier. I feel like as far as the animation goes, the movements are, you know, but a bit more 90s, I'll say, because they were made in the 90s, so it feels much more 90s level of CG. Whereas this is like the transition period of Esther, where Esther really takes its time to really like take the time of having the frames feel fleshed out, and like you can actually feel like the gravity of the movement of the hops, if that makes sense. Those are visuals that I pay attention to. Yeah, Esther is overall really good as a story too. The story is very mature, and it's some people's actual top 3 favorites. I would say it's in the very good category as well. It's not the one I tend to go back on as like let's throw this one on. It's not the first one I would go to, but it's still a very impactful one with a very great visual. So let's go to it's in between here. Let's put it right here. Yeah, I think Esther fits right here. Okay, moving on. Lyle the Kindly Viking. Okay, this one is another one that I did not grow up with watching, but I had friends from church who owned this one, and I watched it at their house or whatever, you know? And I think this is also one that I actually started watching when I was a bit later in life. So I think instead of being like really young, like 5 or 6, I think it was like around like maybe 9 or so at this point. So it's still a really fun story. Honestly, if anything, I actually much prefer the first segment that they do with Archie taking over the show, sort of like what Jimmy and Jerry did. Actually, I actually totally forgot to cover the opening of King George. The whole Jim and Jerry segment is so funny. The whole the man with the bananas is a great gag. It's just classic Phil and Mike humor. I love it. It's awesome. But like I said, Lyle is great in the very beginning, in my opinion, of the first segment, because again, there's always a veggie that starts to take over the show, and Archie does it in his very artistic, Shakespearean British sort of way, and he respects the arts. He respects Gilbert and Sullivan. He wants to do his take on the lesson of sharing. And it's a fun one. It's a really funny one. It's one of the funniest skits, I think, in the VeggieTales catalog, in my opinion. The main story of Lyle the Kindly Viking is, again, visually beautiful. It looks really good. I think this is also like one of the funniest roles that Bob and Larry actually have. This is another one where Nezra's also the villain, and he's fine. Nezra's usually always the villain, and he does what he has to do. But like I said, with Larry and Bob being the the sidekicks, with Junior being the lead, Bob and Larry are really funny in this role. It's really good. So the comedy is really good. The lesson's fine. I think sharing is not the most impactful lesson you can learn, and in this sort of lesson learning series. But again, for little kids, it's still important. So for that, very entertaining. Message is fine, but also very visually beautiful as well. So I'm going to put it in the pretty good category. I would put it in probably a bit behind Mad and Blueberry. I think that sounds about right. I'll put him right here. That sounds about right. Okay, next up. Skipping this one here. And also skipping this one here too, because I guess this is when Jonah came out, because this is, I believe, right after Lyle was when Jonah was released back in 2002, I think. Which I was not even born yet at that point. I was in 2003. So, actually, I have Jonah here anyway, so I'll just rank Jonah right now since we're in release order anyway. Jonah. Oh, this one is a big fish, pun intended, because it tackles so much. It is the first official movie. And even though that's the downfall of Big Idea, watch my video on my channel if you don't know what that means, because I go into depth and detail of what happens with that. But the movie itself is really good. I really love Jonah. Oh man, such a good one. And if I had to, where'd I put it? Probably absolute best. I think it's my second runner-up for besides LarryBoy and the Fifth from Outer Space. So let's put Jonah up there. Honestly, there's so much I could talk about it, because it's such a longer show compared to the other ones. Let me see. There we go. Sorry guys, I'm working with just a trackpad here, so I can't move my mouse all the way up in one go, so that's why I have to go in levels. There we go. Jonah. Yeah, really good one. Humor, comedy, animation, the looks of the show itself, all of it. It's honestly 10 out of 10. The lesson itself, it's so good. It's perfect. It's awesome. I don't know what else to say about this one. It's so good. It's a great show. It's really unfortunate that they lost money and had to go bankrupt, and this is the downfall. But for what they put out, I think Phil should be really happy to this day, because he did a great job on this one. Okay, moving on. Star of Christmas. Okay, we're getting into the Silver Age now. I really love the Silver Age a lot, so lots of these will be going in the very good category, if not absolute best. Star of Christmas is really well done. Again, this is where the animation starts really looking smooth now. It's not looking like it was like a 90s, direct-to-home video project. It looks like it's made in the 20th century, which it was. And it looks great. The story itself, telling the second official Christmas special they did a great job of retelling the story of the birth of Christ in a really innovative way. Like it's not the typical way you suspect, because Toilet Saved Christmas was their first one, the first Christmas special, and It tells it again. I love Toilet Save Christmas, right? They tell it in a very straightforward way, and it's much more, and it's much more in the modern day commercialized, Santa Claus era, basically, which is fun, But then where they take this with Star Christmas, with A Christmas Story, is so fun because they're taking this back into the 1800s of London, I believe. That's like when the time period is sort of set. And they just do such good wonders with this, because I think this is supposed to be more of a riff on Gilbert and Sullivan, Larry and Bob, and like they're sort of like their roles as producers for putting on this gigantic theatrical production. It's fantastic. The comedy, like I said, I think is really funny as well. I'm trying to think of an actual moment I really love. Oh, the whole chase scene with Moyer and Cavis and Millward in the church is not only it's hilarious too. Like the whole chase is so funny, but the actual action sequence itself too, of them running away, is so fun. It's such a fun action sequence. It's a little there's some tension, but it's not like tension that scares you. It's just fun tension that keeps you on your seat. Like, will they get away? It's not as good as Easter Carol in my opinion though, and I'll get to that one later on, because Easter Carol is goated. It's top tier best. But Star Christmas is really good, or very good in this category. So I'm gonna put it in front of King George. And this is also when they start going up into 45-minute shows, I think, at this point, because for a while they were just doing half hours. And lots of the shows in the Silver Age started cracking past the 40-minute mark, I think. So that's also kind of cool. So they actually have more time to actually be in the story, rather than before it was much more 30-minute segments. Okay, next up, Ballad of Little Joe. Oh man, this is another classic by many people's standards. The belly button song is great. The animation, I'm gonna be saying lots about the animation from now on, because it's pretty hard to say that the animation is not good, because some of the older shows, you can tell it's a bit dated in some areas. Even my favorite, LarryBoy and the Fit from Outer Space, I understand it is a bit dated from as far as technology and animation goes. It is a bit, but I still love it though. Whereas there's a few others that I'm not as nostalgic for. You can definitely tell it stands out more as far as being much more dated as far as the animation goes. But Little Joe, and like many others in the future from here, are looking nice and smooth. I'd probably put this in the very good category again. A Ballad of Little Joe it's a really good one. The story itself and the message it teaches is very powerful. It's honestly sort of the same category as Jonah, honestly, from what it teaches about compassion and mercy. From what Joseph has to learn in the actual Bible itself. But I think that's also kind of the cool part too, because there's much more than just one lesson you can pick apart from these episodes. Especially when they do Bible retellings. It's not they always have it in their label. Josh and the Big Wall, a lesson about having faith, or whatever. It's cool because even though that's what they're focusing on, there's much more narratives you can pull out from that. Besides just having one lesson. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent here. Little Joe, I think, goes in the very good category, and I think it should probably go right behind Star Christmas, I think. Yeah, I think that's fair. Let's put Little Joe there. Little Joe goes right there. Cool. All right. The Easter Carol. Okay. Like I said, this one is goated. It is top tier. I think it is... is it better than Jonah? I don't know if I can say that. I'll put it next. I'll put it after Jonah, because I think Jonah is really good. But it also has the advantage because it's also a longer actual feature-length movie. So, it's a little hard to have that competition with Easter Carol. But Easter Carol is a full-on, I guess I'll say parody. Parody sounds more like it's meant to be more of a comedy, but I'll say it's more of a inspiration of the classic story of the Christmas Carol with Ebenezer Scrooge. And honestly, yeah, the casting for this, with having Nezer in the role of Ebenezer Nezer, is you couldn't pick a better vegetable character than Nezer. You know, like it'd be weird if Larry was like that, like weird old stuck up old man, you know, who doesn't understand anything. But having them as the actual sequel from Star of Christmas as Cavis and Millward, and bringing them into this story, I think is brilliant. Like Phil was talking about this for a while in the behind the scenes of how they could tie these together, and I think they did in such a cool way, where they sort of combined, the Gilbert and Sullivan character prototypes of Larry and Bob, and then they kind of made them both the Bob Cratchit characters in the Easter Carol spoof, which again, just as far as casting goes, is perfect. And also, of course, you have to have Junior as Tiny Tim. It's just, it's perfect, Okay, but the actual show itself, though. Oh man, this is basically like an actual movie. Like if it was, like you could have made this an actual movie. Like if you added a bit more, like exposition and like other plots probably on the side. Like you could have made this an actual theatrical movie, if you wanted to, but they didn't, which is fine. But like that's how good the quality of this movie is. This show, I mean, the character arc of Nezer is actually like wonderful. Like I don't usually describe VeggieTales as wonderful, but that's what this one is to me. I'll describe others as like awesome or funny or heartfelt, but this one, Easter Carol, is a wonderful show. It tells the story, it starts the story with Star Christmas of the birth of Christ, right? And then it ends it with, understanding what the crucifixion was. And the fact that Phil and the whole team tried to tackle that with their vegetables and their vegetable characters is mind-blowing, because they always had the rule from day one that you don't portray Jesus as a vegetable. And that's just crazy. And obviously it's the right thing to do in my opinion, but like you can still tackle the story like this in such a lovely way. Hope's song is actually tear-jerking. Like every time I hear that now. When I was a kid, I didn't fully, I wasn't crying at that point, right? But looking back now as an adult, hearing this, it brings you in tears. It's so well done. And again, like I said, the climax as well. Oh, it's so riveting, like it's not necessary. You don't need a climax for this kind of story, but like, it's still fun, because, you have, what can you do with the setting and the factory and, everything in this world is so fleshed out so well. It started the fleshing out very well in Star Christmas, and they expanded it even more in Easter Carol. And oh man, the music in this too is so good. I can go off on the music for a while, but such a great show. Climax is great. It's exciting. The story is exhilarating. Such a good show. Really fun one. Okay, next up, Snoodle's Tale. This one is a really sweet and cute show. It's much more of I don't know. It's strange because it feels like there's different episodes for different ages and maturity lengths. Because even though they're all meant for kids, I feel like there's just some that just hit different for some older audiences, in my opinion. Like Easter Carol is just one of those that it feels it's meant for more of an older audience, not necessarily like teenagers, but like older kids, and likewise with the very earlier VeggieTales, they feel like they're meant for 3-year-olds or 2-year-olds, which is it is what it is, right? But Snoodle's Tale feels like it fits more in that middle category where it's talking about your self-worth, right? Which is a thing that lots of people struggle with even to this day, right? Especially like in the time and era we're living in right now, right? So I think understanding that message is very important. So I think the message is good. The way the story is told, though, I think with the second segment itself, the actual Snoodle's Tale segment is done in more of a childlike fashion, right? Because I think having actual vegetable characters does impact that when you have an actual child actor voicing this this very young Snoodle, right? So it does feel like you're it not necessarily that you're looking down to the characters like you were with the earlier shows, in my opinion, but you can tell it is meant for a bit of a younger generation, right? That's sort of my takeaway, but it's still very sweet. It's very sweet. And then you also have your earlier portion with Dr. Jiggle, right? It's not. I'm not gonna say it's more mature, but it's a bit more. I guess I actually would say it's more mature, right? It is mature. Just the way it presents itself as, more being more of like a spooky, dark alleyways, and right. But same idea, It talks about self-worth in a very more lighthearted way, despite it feeling more meant for for older kids rather than younger kids, whereas Snoodle's Tale is more of a younger kid's part. Still tackling self-worth. I don't know if that made any sense, but that's just my deep analysis into this kid show. Anyway, I think Snoodle's Tale overall is pretty good. It's a fun time. I'm gonna put it in between Josh and Toy That Saved Christmas. I'm gonna put it right here. Right there. Right there. Okay, next up, Sumo of the Opera. Okay, really funny history with this one for me. It's actually, personally for me now, it's actually one of my favorites. I would actually put it in the absolute best category. I'd probably put it just behind LarryBoy, I think. Actually, I really, really love this one because there's a few things why. There's a few nostalgia factors coming in because this is definitely one of them I grew up with for a very long time, and so we played this one a lot in the house, right? So nostalgia factor does play into it for me, honestly. So, take that however you will. And then also, the actual story itself. There's a few stories in this show. There's a lot that happens, but it all works in the same lesson for perseverance. The actual sumo segment itself is really good. It's honestly it's sort of what inspired me to start working out. When you get that montage, because the way how it works for most people, it's like whenever you see Rocky or a Karate Kid for the first time, that's when you're inspired, like, oh, I want to be like those guys, right? I'm going to start taking my life, with more discipline and all that, right? For me, it was always the VeggieTale parodies, that I was exposed to first, and then the actual product of whatever pop culture reference it is. So I always watch the parodies first, and then I follow through with what I want to see or what I'm inspired by through that. So Larry working out, working hard to get fit to fight the Apollo Gourd is that's all what did it for me when I was young. That's when I was like, okay, yeah, time to start hitting the gym now. That's what Larry does. That's what I'm gonna do. So I love it for that end. It's just a very inspiring movie. It's very, very inspiring. Almost like a classic sports movie almost, which I am also a sucker for if it's done well. Also, along with the Going Up segment and also the St. Patrick segment is really well done. The Going Up is honestly probably one of the funniest skits in the whole catalog for me. Not just the show itself, the whole catalog. Going Up is really well done. Again, it still fits the perseverance lesson, but it's done much more in a, Three Stooges, Laurel and Hardy kind of way. So it was great. Also, I might tackle this more in an actual review of Sumo, but Loot Fee, however, opening countertop with Bob, it honestly, I will be honest. I was hinting at this before with the fib of how terrifying the fib is when I was younger. Loot Fee is one of those other ones that not a whole lot of people think of, but he terrified me when I was a kid, and I'm gonna explain why. Loot Fee's not your normal character who is big and scary and meant to be intimidating like the Fib is. Fib is, purposely meant to be, a little intimidating, right? Loot Fee, however, was not designed to be like that. It was not intended that this little sock puppet, this little finger puppet played by a little caterpillar, it wasn't intended for him to be intimidating. But I'll tell you why though. The close-up shots we get of this guy, and the design of him overall is actually it's distorted, in my opinion. I don't know, that's the best way to put it. It's distorted. It's like you take like these like sharp beady eyes are staring into your soul, and then like you have like this weird off-putting mustache he has, and there's like the wrinkles in his belly. I don't know. Just let me know if I'm crazy for thinking this. I think Luffy is honestly one of the more just off-putting part. Like, his character is funny. I will say he's funny, but his character is very off-putting. Like, if you like show me in like a little jump cut of him, like with like a jump scare, like, with his face, like I would actually like still be startled today, because I just don't expect it, and he's a very off-putting design, and it's not intimidating, but it's scary for me personally. So take that how you will. Luffy is still a very weird character to me, because he's funny, but his design is also very weird to me, and it puts me off in a very scary kind of way, if that's the best way to put it. So you guys can make fun of me in the comments for being a little scared of Luffy all these years later. Anyway, moving on. Duke and the Great Pie War. This one is also really sweet. I would probably put in the same category as Snoodle's Tale. It's a very sweet story about love. I really like both segments actually a lot, with Babysitter in Denial, and then also the main story with Duke and the Great Pie War. All of it done very well. I did grow up with this one as well. It just wasn't in my top 5, whatever. So it was, again, I would probably put this in the more classic category of like, this is a good VeggieTales, you know? Duke is, you know, there's some good gags in there, but also a very sincere story and a really good message. So I'd probably just put it in, I would probably put it in front of Snoodles. So let's just do that. Also, the silly song in this one is really good. I really enjoy it a lot. With the blues with Larry is a very funny one. Also, I forgot to mention before with Sumo, love the silly song. Lots of people don't know this one because lots of people growing up in the 90s kind of, you know, stopped watching VeggieTales, and then they don't know much about the Silver Age shows. So when they hear like stuff like Pizza Angel or Schoolhouse Polka, they'll be like, it's not as good because I just don't grow up with it, right? For me, it was the opposite. I did grow up with it, and I also think the quality is really good still. Like the whole, you know, riff on just like a grammar lesson with Larry is really good. So I forgot to mention that in Sumo. It's the whole like one shot segment of him just singing a song, kind of very reminiscent of the Water Buffalo. Is very similar in that sense, where it's just a one shot of him, a few close-ups, and that's it. But it's very fun, very silly, and I sang this one a lot, and I sang it a lot as a kid as well. So there's a nostalgia factor for you. But that was Sumo of the Opera for the silly song, and also Duke and the Great Pie War, also really fun. Not as good as Schoolhouse Polka in my opinion, but still fun. Still a fun, silly song. That's a hard word to say fast, silly song. I gotta slow down my words. Okay, Minnesota Cuke. This one is really good. The whole Indiana Jones spoof, basically, I think it was actually based on a video game that Big Idea produced before, like way back when, and then they actually made an actual show based off it, which is based off, very obviously, of the whole Raiders of the Lost Ark. Not the plot beats, but much so just the characters and the vibe of the story. That goes straight down just to the actual like font of the title, which I think is great. Like these guys do parodies in a very heartfelt way. It's not just like a way to make fun of a previous franchise. It's just a way to pay homage to it and then do their own thing, which I think is sweet. But Minnesota Cuke though is a very good VeggieTales. I would honestly probably put it in between. See, here's the thing. I would put it in between Little Joe and Star Christmas because it is that good for me. But the junior segment in the beginning with Bully in Trouble, or the Bully segment, I forget exactly what it's called again. It's fine, but I do think it's the same thing where, again, you feel like whenever Junior's on screen, like he is a younger character by definition compared to Bob and Larry, right? So it always feels like you're looking down to him, right? Same thing with God wants me to forgive them. It's the same thing as that. So, like, again, as a young kid, I'm sure it's fine, but just for, looking back for me, it's not the one I relate with more and more now. It's more so with the more older characters and a more somewhat mature story, but more of a realistic take of what bullies can be like, in a very heightened animated way, right? With Minnesota Cuke. So I do kind of bump it back up just a bit more because the Junior story is not as relatable to me personally. That's just a personal thing for me. It's not a riff on the show. I think they do both segments very well. It's just, for me, I prefer the second story much more than the first one in the show. So I'd probably put this one behind Little Joe and right in front of King George. Ooh, actually... Nah, I think it actually goes behind King George as well. I think King George is actually a bit better. Yeah. I think that's the way it's got to be. Let's do it right there. Okay, cool. Let's see. Lord of the Beans. Ooh, this is another good one. I'm a huge fan of the actual Lord of the Rings trilogy, as most people are as well. It's my favorite trilogy of all time. Fellowship of the Ring is my favorite movie of all time. So this is, I don't hold it in the same standard because obviously VeggieTales is just a whole different category in by itself. So I hold it in a different scale, obviously, because it's trying to be something different. But as far as being a good parody with teaching a good lesson, it does it very well. Honestly, I think taking the whole concept of Lord of the Rings and making it making it into a VeggieTales based story, with a point, with more of a happier ending. I mean, Lord of the Rings does end with a happy ending, but this is obviously much more kid based, right? Much more child friendly. So the changes they make for what the ring is, because the ring is full on evil in the actual lore itself. Whereas the bean is you can use it for good or evil, So they kind of changed the narrative around the actual MacGuffin itself, right? So, which I think is actually pretty smart in this case. So again, props to the writing team for rewriting sort of the different plot points to make this story work better in a VeggieTales format. So, and it's also just fun too, a fun, good Lord of the Rings parody, You can't really go wrong. And also, I love this Cecilia song. It's a really fun one. And honestly, the whole pun between Elvis and Elvish is brilliant. I can't believe there's not really been anything else done like that before, as far as I know. So I love. It's such a fun one. It's also a groovy song as well because it's Elvis, right? You can't go wrong. Okay, let's put that in the. I think I'll probably put it behind Minnesota Cuke as well. This is a fun one. Minnesota Cuke. Yeah, these are all very good. Yeah, I think this list is pretty fair so far. Okay. Let's see. Okay, Sherlock Holmes. This one is one of those ones I never grew up with, actually. I had a couple friends who owned it, and I only saw it a couple times, actually, in my childhood. So it's not one that's always very living fresh in my memory, but for what I did see, it's really good. It's a classic VeggieTales, It's it's sort of like the same story, that's good, about friendship, right? And both segments too with again, I'm forgetting the actual name of the first segment, but I really love the art direction in that first one. The art direction is very well done, and I do enjoy watching it quite a bit just for that reason. Just looking at the visuals. Yeah, no, Sherlock. Honestly, it's nothing special to me personally. Not because for a few things, right? Because I didn't grow up with it, and the story itself is it's more base level, when it comes to like lessons about sharing and friendship, like those are good things, but for me it's not the most impactful lessons in this whole catalog. It's fine, they're fine ones, right? But they're not takeaways for me personally. So I think I would probably put that in the pretty good category. I'm gonna say I'd probably put it behind Josh. Or honestly, I think I'll actually put it behind Madame Blueberry. Again, this is all a personal list, right? I didn't grow up with it, right? It does the story very well, for what it is. It's just, it's not the one I would go to straight away, for me personally. Yeah, I think that's fair. Okay, moving on. LarryBoy and the Bad Apple. Oh man, okay, so this is a really fun one. This is not only a fun one, it's also a very impactful one. Not only is because is it the third segment in the LarryBoy, in the main catalog. It's the third installment of the LarryBoy series. This is definitely like, post Jonah, when they really go into the cleaner animation, right? Like they have much bigger budget for lots of these things, and LarryBoy is definitely like, it's been a while since they've done one, since Rumor Weed basically, and they did more of like as far as the actual story goes, or more so just the actual parody they're going off of. You can definitely tell that they were riffing on their more recent Spider-Man movies that came out during that time, like with the Tobey Maguire ones. So, compared to more of the Batman spoofs that Phil was doing with Fib and Rumor. So I think it's sort of a cool, evolution of just the style and tone that they were going for with this one. Overall, like the actual visual of this show looks really cool. Like it's very different compared to Fib and Rumor Weed, because I think of lots of like nighttime scenes, like like I said with Fib, they have so much more nighttime shots and like really crazy like sky clouds, sunsets that really set the atmosphere in a really cool way. Whereas this one doesn't pull focus on much more of the setting. The setting is very big, right? Like this is where you can definitely tell that they had a bigger budget for these later shows, and Bumbleyburg feels like a full fleshed out city with actual like living civilians, taller buildings, much more of like a your metropolis, your Gotham City, it's your superhero town, and it definitely feels more fully fleshed out in this one, which is, it's cool to see, again, just the evolution of where all the budget and the CGI has come to at this point now, post Jonah in the Silver Age. Yeah, overall the story itself for LarryBoy and the Bad Apple, I really like this one a lot. I watched this one a lot as a kid. I did own this one as well. It still doesn't quite top Fib for me personally. I'm very biased towards Fib, honestly. So if you guys have LarryBoy and Bad Apple honestly ranked in like your top 10, top 5 on it, I can totally understand that. Like, it's a very good story. The action is also really good. I think it's actually the most like action packed LarryBoy, as far as I know. I'm not counting any of the 2D shows. I'm just counting the main releases from the main catalog. But yeah, man, the actual fact that LarryBoy actually gets to save the day, along with learning the lesson, that is one thing that still always bothers me about Fib and Rumor, is that LarryBoy, doesn't do much. And I get that sort of like the fun part, like the funny part about more so that like, Phil and Mike are having fun with, it's like, he's a superhero, but he's not really super, right? Whereas, like, I don't know, I feel like you can still like have him be like this fun, goofy guy, being like, Larry being that person, right? But still make him an actual superhero who can still do stuff, even if he has the toys, and I understand, like, it was just more of like a parody they're actually going off of, whereas this one in the third installment, they actually take him as an actual hero, it's not just like it's kind of like a parody, like no, this is actually like Larry actually has like a secret identity, and he is LarryBoy, or other way around, him being Larry, take it how you will. So yeah, he saves the day, he stops the Bad Apple, and while still understanding the lesson of temptation, right? Whereas he has to like learn the hard way without doing anything. He's just the muscle, basically. He does the main physical stuff with the plot, but then all the kids, Junior and Laura learn their lesson, or Junior learns his lesson. It's just something that I don't love about the older shows personally, even though, again, I love the older LarryBoys, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, I think it was a very good fix. I think they definitely improved upon that with Bad Apple, because they gave much more for LarryBoy to actually do, and not taking away from the actual lesson itself. It was a perfect mix between the two. Temptation, it's a very, very good lesson to learn. Everyone goes through it, and I think also just the way how the writers actually handled temptation was very tricky, but they did it in a good way too, because obviously if you actually look behind the scenes, I definitely know that they were skeptical of what kind of elements of temptation they wanted to introduce into the show, because they don't want to introduce kids to any unknown kind of sin that they're not that they don't know yet, right? They, as them, being actual Christ, believing Christians, right? They want to make sure that they don't lead any kids astray, even while trying to tell their message, right? And they hit a really good balance, more so with the overindulgence part, with LarryBoy overindulging to chocolate, overindulging video games, all that, right? It's more of a safer route, but it still gets the point across very clear, especially for a younger kid, right? And you can still apply that temptation value, or how to combat temptation when you're older and you actually have those newer actual struggles of sin, whether it's lust, pride, all those things, right? Even though they're not tackling those specific sins, it's still, the message still equals to how to combat those things later on in your life, which I think is awesome. Definitely one of the best stand-up messages, and they do it in a very good way that still appeals to young kids, but you can really look back to it as an adult and appreciate of how to go about that, So anyway, there was a bit more of a longer ramble about LarryBoy, but I think this show is really good for what it does. Again, for me personally, I have a personal bias towards Fib from Outer Space. It is better, to me personally. But LarryBoy and the Bad Apple, I think, definitely goes in the very good category. I'm going to put it probably in front of Little Joe. I think this is a really good installment. So let's put him right there. Right here, yeah. I like this one a lot. And also, I have to mention the music video at the end for LarryBoy and the Bad Apple. Oh, that classic hairband motif with Rock On LarryBoy. Oh, such a good song. Oh, man. I love the good old theme song from the original. Don't get me wrong. Very big bandy, groovy, right? But me being a metal fan, or a hard rock fan, it's not, the song itself is not too hard rock, but it's a good 80s hair metal band style. It's a good time just take your hat off and just just headbang to the song, with a corn a corn band of all things, which is brilliant. Having a crazy hair band with vegetables, with corn being that, and also all the puns and all that. It's great. It's these guys never let up on their jokes with vegetables, and it's awesome to see. And just the music itself is awesome too. The actual score itself, I will actually, before I move on from LarryBoy, I'm still on this subject right now. The score, not the music video, the actual score soundtrack from LarryBoy and the Bad Apple, I will say, is not as memorable to me as Fib or even Rumor. Personally, I really miss the big men's choir, the crazy Tim Burton style of Danny Elfman parodies, of the shake your seat, the crazy tension building opera, that was in the background. That's what gave the older shows of LarryBoy so much more stakes and tension, whereas obviously Bad Apple still has tension and stakes. It's just not conveyed much through the music, in my opinion, and more so through the performances of the characters and the actors and the story itself. Kurt Haneke is still a legend, though. He still did a really good job with the Bad Apple score. I just much prefer the older scores. Okay, anyway, moving on. Gideon. Okay, I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. I just want to say, because there's a lot more I have to get through. Still. Uh, this one is one of those ones I did not grow up with, but I end up watching later on in my life. And oh my word, this is one of my favorite Bible stories retold in VeggieTales format. It is so good. Like, if you guys are not familiar with the more the later shows, like I feel like Gideon is like kind of like that time like where people start to not keep track as much of the shows, you know, up to this point, you know. But for me, like I was still pretty on board for these ones. Like this is still in the Silver Age for me. Gideon's it's a really good one. Paul Grape as the angel is awesome. I love seeing shows with Paw and Larry, with you know, Paw being more the mentor. Same thing with him. Same case with Paw and Larry being in Sumo of the Opera. You know, with, you know, Mikey being the Italian Scallions trainer. You know, I love that, those pairing together. It's really sweet. So the same thing kind of happens here again, and it's a really actually faithful adaptation of Gideon, despite all the, you know, the changes, you know, in like with the marching band and all that, which again I think it's a great change. And the climax of the end I love. The music goes off. It's a full-on marching band, you know, drum line, and it's so good. If you guys forget the score or haven't heard it, or just like watch the credits of the actual show just to hear the actual music, it's so fun. It's so good to listen to. And man, it actually has some of the most, like, you know, like heart pounding, not heart pounding. And man, it also has some of the best lines in any VeggieTales, in my opinion. If you hear the stuff that Pa says about like how God treats his faithful servants, you know, like he says that you have to do what he says first, right, before you can actually hear the good job and well done, faithful servant. Anyway, I think I'll probably honestly put Gideon definitely in front of Josh and the Big Wall. I put it in front of Toilet Save Christmas. I would think it probably goes in the very good category, honestly. I think we gotta put it in front of Dave. Does it go in front of Esther? Oh, I think it does. I think we gotta put it right between Minnesota and Lord Beans. I think that's where it's gotta go. Really good. Yeah. Really good show. Okay, moving on. Mo and the Big Exit. Same thing, sort of a sequel to Little Joe, in some aspects. You know, returning to Dodgeball City, you know, and also a continuation of the story of Joseph, carrying down the lineage to Moses eventually at some point. Man, what a great adaptation again with another Bible retelling. Mo and the Great Exit is it's such a wonderful story. It's actually probably my first official. What's the word? It's probably my most official viewing of the Exodus story. My first official viewing of it, because I know obviously the Prince of Egypt is, like, you know, known as like the all-time, you know, top tier telling of that, or even like the Ten Commandments, you know, like there's so many Hollywood stories back, you know, in the 90s or maybe even 70s and 80s, you know, they tried to tackle the Exodus story a lot back when Hollywood was willing to do that kind of thing, you know. And they those ones are awesome too. I love Prince of Egypt, but I have a special place for Mo, because that was my first exposure to the Exodus story when I was a young kid. So, and also again, the changes are done faithfully, but still done in a fun Western way, keeping with the same tone as Little Joe. I would probably rank it just behind Little Joe. I think Little Joe is a bit better, just because of the silly song. Belly Button and Little Joe is way better than the silly song in Mo, personally. It's not even the original song they did for Mo. It was just like another retell, or it's another music video for one of the Boys in the Sink albums. So I mean, it's fine. Like, you know, it's a fine rap and all that, but I honestly, the stories themselves are both like, oh no, don't go there. The stories themselves are both really good. I just put it a little ahead in front of Mo, because I think the Belly Button silly song is iconic, and it's much better than the later one. Moving on. Okay, Wonderful World of Haas. This is a really good one too. I Really, really love this one. This is one of the most sweetest VeggieTales to me as well. I think it's up there with like Snoodle's Tale being a really sweet one, or Duke and the Great Power being a really sweet one. You know, like just like you feel so heartwarmed at the end. And again, the fact that Big Idea can take these pop culture parts, you know, of, you know, movies and just, you know, characters and stories, and combine them with actual parables or stories from the Old Testament is astounding to me. Like putting the whole the whole spoof of Wizard of Oz with the prodigal son story is incredible. Like that's so smart. Like and they did it great. They did a great job, and obviously like the character types of Junior being Dorothy. This is actually my favorite Junior lead story. I've always kind of given Junior not the best you know, notice for him being the lead star in lots of the shows, but he's really good. He's a really good main lead for Wonderful World of Oz. Very sweet story. The animation is beautiful as well. So good. I definitely have to put this up in the again I have to put in the very good category. There's so many ones in this time period are just so good. I think I'm gonna probably put it behind King George. I think let's put it behind King George. Oh no, it's really hard to move this, guys. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to put it in the not good category. It's just the trackpad. You know how it is. All right. Let's put you right behind George. Awesome. Okay. Moving on. Big River Rescue. Big River Rescue. Okay, so this one is pretty good as well. It's not my favorite. It's a nice story about friendship. I think friendship is a part of it, but it's more so about helping others, obviously, like it says in the title. I think. But like friendship is a big part of it too, because the reason why you would help others, you know, regardless if they're your friends or not, you still want to make sure you're helping them, right? You know, it's a very valuable lesson, especially when you're a young kid. I prefer this more of a friendship story, because it is a friendship story. You know, it's very much like Sherlock is. So I would honestly put it. I'll put it a bit ahead of Sherlock. I think just for friendship stories wise goes, even though it's not directly about friendship, I would say it's still a friendship story, and it does go ahead of Sherlock, because I think it just achieves its purposes better of what it's trying to do. It's also a very big story too. You know, obviously it's another not more so of a Bible retelling, but an actual pop culture parody again, and the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, right? So I like this one. I have not much to say about it. It's a good VeggieTales, you know. It's a classic good VeggieTales. It's not a great, you know, and not an all-time great for me personally, but it's still a really fun one. So I would put it in the pretty good category. I would put it behind Madame Blueberry, I think. Let's put him right. There we go. Yeah. Personally, I think it's better than Sherlock Holmes, but there's still a few other classics that trump it for me. Okay. Okay, next up. I don't know what happened, because this took me a few days to record, since I couldn't do this all in one ranking, all in one go. So I don't know why, but I did add Pirates and Jonah manually myself. And at some point I didn't even realize that I think Jonah was actually missing for a little bit, just because my computer crashed. So I added it back in again. So it's back in the number 2 spot. And now I think we're at Pirates now, because I just finished Wonderful World of Oz. So right after that was the Pirates movie that came out in 2009, I think. I think it was 2009. Yeah, so I'm going to grade the Pirates movie, and then I'll go back to the regular DVD series they have, continuing from here. The Pirates movie. Okay, this one is a fascinating one for me, because when I saw it for the first time, again, I was young, and I really liked it. It was a really solid pirate adventure, you know, like starring, like, you know, the pirates who don't do anything, right? You know, it's a very marketable no, not franchise, but it's a marketable piece in the VeggieTales canon, right? You know, like right next to LarryBoy, right? You know, it's a huge part of the series, and they really made their debut with the ultimate silly song, or sorry, not the ultimate silly song, the a very silly sing along where they first had their first song, the Pirates Who Don't Do Anything, and then they actually came back for the ultimate silly song, which I just realized now because they were hosting like the big countdown. So yeah, they came back a lot. And they're very, very popular among fans. As for the actual movie goes, this is when the technology was really up there. Like it's basically like a normal mainstream kids animation movie. You know, up there with a Disney movie to me. And this is a really fun one. I really enjoy the Pirates Who Don't Do Anything. I've watched it a lot since then. I think I've actually might have watched it more than Jonah, I think, as far as I know. I think when I was a kid, I liked Pirates more than Jonah. Pirates is more up my alley. And then, you know, looking back more as an adult, I kind of realized the more I actually enjoy Jonah personally more now. Pirates is still very good though. I think I would probably put that in the absolute best, honestly. There's like, you know, lots of tropes, you know, for the heroes that they go through. You know, it's a classic swashbuckling adventure, and I think this is also when Pirates of the Caribbean were also just releasing their first couple movies during that time as well, or their very first movie, I think, since that was also 2009. And one of the most memorable parts of this movie was actually the trailer they aired for it. When I was watching, I think if you guys owned The Wonderful World of Oz, they were advertising their movie. Well, they first did their big plug in Gideon the Tuba Warrior, with the pirates taking over the show. But then after that, they actually had an official trailer play if you had the DVD of Wonderful World of Oz. And then the first few scenes, because Pirates of the Caribbean was being released right around this time as Pirates Who Don't Do Anything, they made it seem like it was a marketing tag for Caribbean. And they had like full on live action shots or just B-roll of a rusty pirate ship in a battle in a sea during the storm, you know, and it was like, ooh, you know, aggressive, you know, like this winter, you know, like all the classic, you know, tropes you expect from a pirate movie, right? You know, and you think you're gonna be watching Pirates of the Caribbean for the trailer, right? And then all of a sudden the vegetables break out into song and they go arr, 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 and then, you know, the whole trailer for Pirates Who Don't Do Anything plays, and that was so funny. Like, even as a young kid, I didn't watch the Pirates because I was a bit too young for it at the time. I didn't watch the Pirates of the Caribbean, but even me, like, thinking like, oh, this is a gritty movie that I'm about to watch the trailer for, and all of a sudden they break it into the vegetables, you know, bringing into their own classic spin in it. I think the marketing for that was really fun. It was really cool, just, you know, tying it in with the Pirates of the Caribbean movie at the time. Anyway, that being aside, I have very fond memories of watching the trailer a lot. The actual movie itself, though, is really fun, like I said. Again, lots of tropes that kids are not used to because, again, they don't know any better because they haven't seen those tropes yet for an actual classic, you know, hero's journey. This is literally like the direct definition of a hero's journey. Like, they are literally called the Pirates Who Don't Do Anything, and they have to take on the position of, you know, taking the initiative of, you know, being the heroes that, you know, everyone thinks that they aren't, and then they kind of do, which, you know, for these kind of characters, it's perfect. For a kid setup, you know, in the VeggieTales canon, it's perfect. You know, like, everything's there. So great setup. The story itself is really fun. You know, even though it's, you know, it's very like derivative of some other, you know, movies that I can think of, like at the top of my head. It works very well for being a fun kids movie. You know, and you can actually take the whole family to go see as well because, you know, Lunt is, I think, more of like the pop culture spewing icon that everyone like loves. You know, adults love Lunt, you know, like, you know, kids love Lunt, you know, everyone loves Lunt, you know, and like that's the way how I think adults can connect more, just with his like crazy outlandish humor he has. And then, you know, Pa is sort of like the level-headedness of the group, even though he's also goofy, and then Larry's just, you know, Larry. Yeah, I really enjoy this one. It's more, I always say it's more kid-based, which is obvious because this whole franchise is all about being kid-based. But it's a really fun one. I actually saw this in theaters, which I was Very thankful I got to. This is like one of the first movie theater experiences I actually got to go see, so that was really fun. I think I'm gonna go put it in. Let's see. I think I'll probably put it in absolute best. I really like this one a lot. I'm probably gonna put it behind Easter. I think I'm gonna put it. I'll put it behind Easter. There we go. Yeah. I think it's good. Okay, moving on. Abe and the Amazing Promise. Okay, so this one is sort of where the direct-to-DVD shows sort of start to go from really good just to being decent or lower than decent. And they're fine. So Abe and the Amazing Promise, to me, honestly, is very decent. It's not, honestly, even like a standout of being pretty good. It's just an average. It's a little underwhelming to some points. You know, I honestly, as far as Bible retellings go, I think they really hit it strong with Gideon. Like I said, I think that this is my favorite Bible retelling in a VeggieTales format. I mean, obviously, like the classics too, like with Josh and the Big Wall too. You know, you have David and the Giant Pickle, Rack Shack and Benny. You know, those are really good ones, and I love the spin they have on that. And I understand they're trying to go for something a little bit different here. A little bit different, I mean, with, you know, like a cast and crew, you know, like Bob trying to be like the director and, you know, trying to learn patience and all that. It's fine. I just prefer the actual parody-based, you know, switches and then still staying faithful to the Bible story itself. Like Gideon or like Rack Shack and Benny, right? You know, with the classic veggie spin that, you know, we all know to love. I much prefer that formula more than the new system they tried. And I believe this is also when I think they started using the new title card as well. I could be wrong. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. This is actually something I'm not fully for sure on. It could be Noah's Umbrella when they started using the new theme song, along with the title card. So correct me if I'm wrong on that. But I think Abe and the Amazing Promise, to me, is very average. I'm going to put it right behind Are You My Neighbor? I'm sorry if you guys are fans of the show, or this one specifically. It's just not fully for me, and it's fine for what it is. It's not a deal breaker. It's just, you know, it's fine. It's kind of whatever to me, personally. Moving on. Okay, Minnesota Cuke in the Search for Noah's Umbrella. This one is also a good one. It's fine. It's a good, entertaining adventure. I definitely think the original with Samson's Hairbrush is personally better. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I just think the original is better. I think the story's a bit tighter. Noah's Umbrella, though, is still good. I think the actual lesson itself is also pretty valuable, honestly. I think it's more the standout lessons, you know, like learning how to have confidence in those times, you know, like when you're scared to, you know, in front of a bunch of people and you don't want to embarrass yourself. I think it's actually a cool lesson to take this character of Minnesota Cuke on. It's not the first one I would think of. You know, if I was in the storyboard or the writing director's chair, I wouldn't immediately think of, you know, the lesson of confidence, but it actually fits very well for this context of the story. So I do appreciate it for that. I also really enjoy the silly song as well, the Sippy Cup song. That's a really fun one. I definitely think Pizza Angel is a goated silly song, so nothing will beat that as far as, you know, this category of silly songs go. But Sippy Cup is still a fun one. It's an enjoyable one. So I would say pretty good for Noah's Umbrella. I'm probably gonna put it. I would put it behind Sherlock and. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna put it behind Lyle. I think. I'm gonna put it behind Lyle. I think Lyle, the Kindly Viking, is better. It's still a fine show. It's a good one. I don't think it's average. I think there's some standout elements that are enjoyable, but it's not like any of the ones ahead of it, for me personally. Okay, moving on. Let's see here. St. Nicholas. Okay, this one is actually a really good standout one for the newer age of VeggieTales. You know, the Bronze Age. The Bronze Age is what I call it, right? So I think this is like basically when Abe and the Amazing Promise hits, that's when the beginning of the Bronze Age started. That was right after the Pirates movie. And that's when the Silver Age was done for me personally, and then the whole new phase with the new theme song came, and all the new even some of like the new modeling textures of the characters themselves. I feel like Larry himself has been on like the longest journey for character models, because if you look at how he was in Where's God When I'm Scared, like he's like a dark green, like tall, thick cucumber. I know that sounds kind of weird, but like that's what he is though. Like he's a tall cucumber, right? And he stayed like that for basically all of the Golden Age. I think it was only right near until, where would it be? I think it was like near King George and the Ducky, where he started to lighten his skin tone a bit more. Just the design of the character, and then later on, I'm gonna go on a rant on this for a second. So if you like to hear me talk about Larry's skin tone, then you're in the right place. I think that, I think it was King George, where he really like started to change his color and also his appearance. I think that's just with updates of the new technology that the creators had, and then they started to go more of like of a fluid CGI looking motion for them. And then during the Silver Age, I think it was during where's Lyle? I think Lyle. It was King George and Lyle, and maybe even Esther during like those times of like the really late 90s, the very late 90s, very early 2000s time for VeggieTales. That's when he actually started to update his more of his not only his color but also his size as well, because I feel like he was really tall for like compared to Bob and Junior for a lot of it in the older shows, and then for some reason they really shrunk him down a bit more. I feel like in the Silver Age. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about. I don't know if this is something I just noticed, but in the Silver Age, like everything up from like Little Joe, Duke and the Great Pie War, especially in Sumo, he's a shorter cucumber. Like he's a really small. He's not like a puny guy, right? But like he's a smaller cucumber compared to how he was in the later shows, and he kind of maintained that same stature all the way through the Silver Age. I think Minnesota Cuke, like he was sort of the same. Gideon, even like LarryBoy, like everything seemed like he was smaller, or just his shape was a bit different, right, compared to the older series. Like even like Rumorweed, he was built, he was buffed out, and then later on he sort of slimmed down, I guess. Anyway, I think the Golden Age though, they started turning his skin darker again slowly, like very slowly, but they still kept his size though. He's still small, but they made him really dark. For these later shows, like especially like when we get to It's a Meaningful Life, like he's so dark in that again. So it's just really funny just to see the evolution of Larry's body. Like I don't know what diet he was on. Maybe hopefully it wasn't a vegetarian diet, because that would be cannibalism, I guess, in his case. But I don't know, whatever the animators were doing is they were experimenting with lots of different styles. So comment down below if you know what I mean when Larry looks like he was different later on in the series, many times. Okay, with that tangent out of the way, Saint Nicholas, very fun story. Not only fun but also very impactful too. They tackle a part of history again. So it's not just like technically biblical stories, right? Even though those are still part of history, right? They actually tackle more post-biblical stories. They were talking about like still during the time of Greece. I believe this is post-biblical times. I believe. I mean, Greece has been around during the Bible, obviously, but this is a different context of Greece. So I think it was really cool for the time they're telling. The sort of like the Bob and Larry story time style. It was fun. It was cool. I think it was really sweet as well. I think it's not as sweet and like memorable as Star Christmas to me personally, because I believe this is their third official Christmas special next to Star Christmas. I think Star Christmas is way better still for being a Christmas special. Does it top Toy That Saved Christmas though? I'm not fully sure. I think it's probably in the same category. This is honestly probably flip-flop back and forth. I would probably put, just for me, I think it would probably go behind Toy That Saved Christmas. and maybe just right behind Duke, but then in front of Snoodle's tail. I think that's a fair assessment. So let's put him right there. Yeah, I think that's a good one, especially for like the newer shows, because this is when the Bronze Age does finally hit. I think this is definitely a standout in the Bronze Age. So good on the team for making a good story with Saint Nicholas. So that's good. Okay, moving on. Pistachio. Okay, I actually also really enjoyed this one too, honestly. Again, making this another junior led story with the the parable based pop culture. It's a classic retelling of Pinocchio, obviously, right? But then you also have the parable that Jesus tells. I think it's also in Luke as well, I believe. So not only is Junior part of two parables with the prodigal son, with the wonderful world of Oz, right here, but you also have him with the lost sheep story, which I also think is very sweet. It's sort of a same, like there's some similarities. I'm not going to say it's the same story, but there's definitely some similarities between Pistachio and World of Oz. But I think there's lots of creative choices, obviously, that make it very distinct, and it's nothing like at all like World of Oz. So in that case, I'm very happy that it stands out. It's not like a cut and paste plot recycled format as, say, LarryBoy and the Rumor Weed was compared to Fib. To me, that seems much more recycled, and that stands out to me as being recycled. Whereas Pistachio and World of Oz have lots of new creative elements that make it different. So I'm very happy about that. The silly song as well is really good. Surprisingly, this is actually like one of the few silly songs in the Bronze Age that I actually really like and actually still turn on quite a bit. That's the Where Have All the Staplers Gone? Like the Broadway show segment. That's a really good one, honestly. It's very reminiscent, of Where's My Hairbrush? The same, questioning of where did this thing go, and I'm gonna sing a whole opera about it. It's a good one. It's a fun one. I actually also really like the vocals that Mike and I forget the actress who plays Sweet Petunia, but they anytime they have duets together, they're really good. Yeah, so it's a fun silly song. The actual story of Pinocchio itself, Pistachio, I mean, it's also really good too. So I put this in the pretty good category. It's really good musically. Animation's really good too. Like the water, they did lots of same models, or like used some of the same set design from Jonah, because they had so much related to each other, being like very like water-based stories, with the whale, which they used. I think they reused the whale. I think they just colored him a bit different. And then obviously Khalil is back again. Thankfully not as Lutfi, because Lutfi is always going to live rent-free in my nightmares. But yeah, no, it's a great story. I would probably put Pistachio in the pretty good category with. Snoodles is always like kind of like the tiebreaker. Like, is it past Snoodles or is it behind Snoodle? I'm probably gonna put it behind Snoodle. I think. I think Snoodle is still better. Is it better than Josh? I'm not sure. I think Josh is a bit better still. Because even though like the emotional moments of Pistachio are still strong, I think the emotional moments are more prominent in the prodigal son story. With World of Oz. I think it's just the beats hit it stronger in that one, as as emotional as vegetables can be. I'm going to put this probably behind Mad and Blueberry and in front of Big River Rescue. I think that's accurate. Yeah, it's a good one. This is actually when the Bronze Age was still doing all right, still doing a good job. Okay, moving on. Sweetpea Beauty. Okay. This is the one where I do not like as much. I understand this is like, very direct inspiration of, the classic Walt Disney cartoons of, your classic princesses, and I have nothing against that. Like, that's not my issue with it. My issue is just, I feel like it's trying to be a full-on cut and paste replica of any Disney princess you can name at the top of your head. And I just think that the Disney editions do it better, like with the original Disney ones. I'm saying, not the remakes. Don't even get me started on the remakes for Disney classics. But I think Sweetpea is almost, it feels very direct to DVD, if you know what I'm saying. It doesn't feel big, it doesn't feel theatrical. I'm not sure what happened to the budget with the show, but I don't know if you guys can see, but the effects and the quality really went down for some reason. There probably is obviously a reason why. Maybe the company was losing more money at this point, because lots of the shows, even It's a Meaningful Life, really lots of weird janky animation again, coming from the company this late in the game. So obviously I don't want to rant on that too hard, because there's not a whole lot you can do when you are losing money, right? So I'm not gonna drive that too much, because it's not fair for the company. But I think Sweetpea Beauty is just not great, just because everything is trying to tell. It's told better in other stories, I think. If you're trying to do a fun story about love, right, or just how to understanding what beauty is within. It's a good message, I will say that, right? But there's elements of that story in other VeggieTales as well, even Snoodle's tale, your self-worth comes from within, right? They actually even do the Snoodle's tale, spin-off again with the second story with Sweetpea again. So, and I think Snoodle's tale, the original, did that story way better in my opinion, compared to the sequel. So, I don't know. And even Duke and the Great Pie War, with its whole, medieval, princess, knights in shining armor times, that story, that storytelling format is done better in Duke, in my opinion. So this one goes down for me. It doesn't stand out. It's honestly probably the first not good one for me personally. I think we have a first contender for Sweetpea not being too good. And I will say this though, I respect them that they're trying to branch out of the, the male demographic, right? Obviously VeggieTales is for, young kids of, boys and girls, right? But this one, obviously, it's very, pretty obvious to tell that they're making this for young girls, which is a sweet message, right? But I think young girls can get way more out of that same message with the earlier shows they made. Like I said, with Snoodle's Tale, with Duke and the Great Pie War. And I just think also the silly song as well, it's fine. It's nothing stand out to me personally. It's just the pants song, and it's whatever. It's there's nothing that stands out to me personally about it. So that's the way I feel about it. Maybe you guys have more nostalgia for it and want to put it higher on your list, which is fine. For me personally, Sweetpea Beauty is nothing special, and everything it tries to tell, it's done better in other shows that the company has produced before. So with that being said, let's move on. It's a Meaningful Life. This is another really sweet one I like. This is another sweet one I really like. It's very heartfelt. This is based on the story It's a Wonderful Life, going back to their classic literature. I guess it's also part of pop culture too, to a degree, but it's not as much pop culture anymore. I feel like it's for lots of younger generations now, people don't know what it is. People look to the Grinch, or all the what else, Elf. That's more like their Christmas pop culture. Whereas It's a Wonderful Life, it's an all-time classic, but not by many people's today's standards, right? Which is very mixed up in my opinion. I think Wonderful Life should be still very evident, but it's the actual story the VeggieTales is basing it off of. I think it does a fine job. There's a few moments in this story that are actually very sweet and very tear-jerking. Honestly, I think I did tear up a few times during this, which is actually the first time I did cry in a VeggieTales. I think there's a few moments where it's actually really relatable with Larry and what he goes through, almost like a midlife crisis kind of, right? It's a very sweet story. The more I'm talking about it right now, the more I'm actually recalling all the scenes in this and the message it tells. It's such an important message, because I think, especially if you're an adult, you can actually relate with this more and more now. Even if you're a kid, right? Say if you oh, he has more toys than I do, right? Sort of the same message is Madame Blueberry, actually, like learning to realize, like, you know, it's not the stuff or like the position you're in that makes you happy in life, right? You know, it's what God has given you from, you know, the heart, your family, you know, your life, even if it's like, you know, not well paying, even if you can't see the actual, like, you know, light of day or the light at the end of the tunnel, you know, if things are going really hard, you know, like there's still a point to your life, you know, there's still a reason why you still exist, you know, and that's so important, you know. Actually, the more I'm talking about that right now, I'm actually starting to get a little teary-eyed. But man, yeah, no, It's a Meaningful Life is actually a really good one. The more I'm thinking about it now, it's another standout in the Bronze Age for me personally. I think it deserves to go much higher than most people give it credit for. This is the time and era where lots of classic veggie fans really fall off with the franchise, which I can understand. This is where the series doesn't get great in my opinion, but there's a few standouts to me, like It's a Meaningful Life, because even though the things that it tries to explain better in the original, like in A Wonderful Life, you could argue it does it better, right? But for tackling this for a kid, and then also looking back as an adult, like, honestly, hats off to you guys. You still did a really good job for it. I will say, though, the animation still looks really janky. It doesn't look great, but again, I can't fault the company for that, because honestly, I think this is when their money problem was going a little harsher at this point. But then they also starting to look better near the end of this run. At the end of the show, it was like the League of Incredible Vegetables. That looks pretty good to me compared to Sweetpea and It's a Meaningful Life. So I'm not fully sure what the reason was. Maybe it was just like, you know, time cuts. You know, there wasn't as much time to finish some of the full-on rendering or the edits. But, you know, whatever. It doesn't take anything away from me. It's just something I noticed, and it's, you know, it's not the most prettiest show to me. But the message, though, I think is one of the most heartfelt messages. But the message to me, though, is probably the most heartfelt message that any VeggieTales has ever tackled. And this is honestly just more coming from, you know, a younger adult now, looking back on his life for the 21 years he has currently lived now at this point, at the time of recording this video, you know? So it hits a bit different for me, you know? Kids may not find that as relatable, but for me, it hits really hard. So let's put that in the pretty good category again. I'm going to put that probably in front of St. Nicholas, honestly. Ooh. Do I want to do that? Is that too high? Let's do... Ooh. See, it's always hard for these because I'm looking at all these, the pretty good list, and there's a lot of good shows here. I would put it in front of Big River Rescue. I would probably put it right behind Pistachio. And no, sorry, one more change. I'm gonna put that behind Madame Blueberry, I think it's a really sweet one. Actually, no, does it go in front of Madame Blueberry? Do I like this more than Madame Blueberry? I know that's like kind of like heresy to say that, like, you know, you like a Bronze Age show better than the Golden Age, because Madame Blueberry is definitely in the Golden Age. I don't know. You guys might really not like me for this. Oh man, I think it has to go in front of Madame Blueberry. I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, this is actually a hot take for me. I will say this is one of my more hotter takes I think I have. I think It's a Meaningful Life is better than Madame Blueberry. But hey, it's just my list, you know? If you disagree, feel free to tell me what you think in the comments. Okay, moving on. 'Twas the Night Before Easter. This one is not good to me. I really don't like this one at all, personally. Not good. For an Easter story, it's a literal night and day difference of what Easter Carol is to 'Twas the Night Before Easter. Everything that 'Twas the Night Before Easter tries to do, Easter Carol does it phenomenally better. Like, 10 out of 10, Easter Carol does it magnificently. Magnificently, right? Yeah, that's how you say it. It does it way better. And to me, 'Twas the Night Before Easter, it just seems like a standard VeggieTales that they just have to, like, you know, they have to square off and, you know, send out to families because, you know, it's a VeggieTales and you have to watch something during the Easter season, you know? Even though it has, you know, fine morals, it's... This one doesn't stand out to me personally at all, so I'm going to put it in not good category. I'm sorry if you guys think oppositely. I do not think this is good, personally. And I don't really want to spend too much on why. It's just, it doesn't stand out to me at all. It's like a blur in my memory at all. Like, nothing about it is great to me, you know. Sometimes I have to be harsh on this company because I love VeggieTales so much, and 'Twas the Night Before Easter was not it for me. So you know, it is what it is, you know. Moving on, Princess and the Popstar. Okay, I do not like this one either. It is more of an actual ripoff rather than an inspiration of Parent Trap, I believe. I think that's the one it's based off of. You know, the Lindsay Lohan movie. I forget. I've seen it once, and it's fine. The actual original movie itself, I think, is fine. It's nothing that I take away from. But yeah, Princess and the Popstar for me. It's one of those VeggieTales where they're really trying to, you know, gear this towards, yeah, you know, young girls, again, which is fine. Like, I don't have an issue with that, right? You can do that with this franchise, obviously, right? But everything is trying to tell, you know, with, again, being content, you know, or being yourself, you know, as the lesson, you know, is trying to tell. That's a very niche lesson to me. Like, being yourself is like nothing to take away compared to that lesson they teach earlier in these episodes, along with many more. Again, like, I feel like the self-worth is more important than being yourself, right? Because sometimes being yourself is not a great thing. You know, this might, like, you know, get me in trouble with some people, you know, who you think, but like, there are some tendencies, you know, which is not the best, you know, right? You know, we are all sinful, you know, right? And that's who we are, right? You know, we should try to be like Christ, you know, right? And we should know that who we are, our identity is in Christ, you know? That's your self-worth, right? And I just feel like this is gearing that more towards the secular message of just be yourself. You're awesome. You're a rock star, you know, or a pop star in this case, you know? So I just think the actual message is not good for me personally. I think the morals of it is a little wobbly. But again, I just feel like Snoodles does tell its story better. Anyway, so Princess the Popstar goes in the not good category. I think its message is very vague, and it can be confused for some things that we should not be celebrating or, you know, or participating or trying to influence our kids to be like. And also just the show itself it's bland. I think the show itself is just very bland. But I think the moral of the message is something that doesn't stand to me more than the actual show itself. Hopefully that makes sense to everyone. I hope I made my point clear. Obviously, yes, be yourself, right? But don't get that confused with being your sinful self, right? We should always try to be like Christ while still knowing who we are as each individuals. And I feel like this show doesn't convey that message very well. Okay, moving on. Little Drummer Boy. This one's fine. It's okay. It's probably another average one for me. You know, it's going back to the biblical roots, you know, which is good. There's actually some pretty dark elements in this. They actually take this in a pretty serious way, which I do enjoy the seriousness of it. It's a fine Junior-led story. Again, this is another one where I'm not like, you know, I'm not passionate that Junior is the lead role of the story, but like, it's fine for what it is, you know. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this one because it's just a fine one for me. Nothing great, nothing bad. It's just an average one for me. So I'm going to put it right behind Abe, honestly. That's kind of where I feel like it belongs. Robin Good. Again, lots of these are just, they get really forgettable for me. And that is only because I have seen them only like around once, I believe. And even if you watch a VeggieTales once, there's something that should stick with you. Again, like if you look back in the Golden Age shows, then you can just tell that those stick with you, you know? Or the Silver Age even as well, you know? Like some of those really stick with you for a long time, even like just with the songs alone, you know? And then Robin Good, it's a fine story that I can't remember very well. But it's a cool pop culture inspired based parody though. So that's cool. Yeah, I'm gonna put this in the average category. I'll probably put it ahead of Drummer Boy. Oh, ahead. Thank you. There we go. Yeah, it's fine. It's average. Nothing to take away from, but it's okay for what it is. The Penniless Princess. Okay, I have actually not seen this one. I will say this right now, that I actually have not seen it. So I'm sorry, guys. I know this should be an accurate full ranking, but this is one I actually missed out on, and I really don't feel like I want to take the time to watch it. So let me know in the comments if you actually like this one or not. Yeah, I can't have any opinions on it because I actually don't know it at all. From what I know, it looks more like an Annie inspiration from what I see. It could be one, or maybe it's something else. I don't know. Looks more geared towards the female audience, which is also fine, but I don't know. Let me know if it's good. I don't think I'll take the time to watch it, though. The League of Incredible Vegetables. Okay, this is where the first non-solo led LarryBoy show really falters for me. I respect for what they were trying to do, because I believe this is actually like right when Avengers, like the first Avengers movie was coming out from Marvel. And again, it's pretty obvious that they're just trying to, cap off the... I don't know if they're capping off the popularity of Avengers, but it's definitely apparent that they're trying to be inspired by this, because that's what happened at the time. That's what was released, and it was like one of the biggest movies of all time at that point. So it's kind of cool. I like the idea of, Larry like being like part of this bigger group, like Avengers-esque, being the League of Incredible Vegetables, or even like something like The Incredibles, if based off the title alone, right? Like being part of a super team, that's cool. But the whole thing is that they're dealing with the whole lesson of fear again. And I really think that we come back to all the way back to square one again, where I think that the very first episode of VeggieTales handles the story of fear better than this very new, cool, glossy-looking show with superheroes in it, The action itself is fine. The lesson is recycled, though. I think it's done better with Where's God When I'm Scared? Despite that one being made 20 years ago from that point, I think. Like, not from now, but like from the release of the Incredible Vegetables Date movie. I think that was like maybe a little over 20 years now at this point. So, and it still did the lesson better, in my opinion. The entertainment-wise, it'll keep your kids entertained. It'll do a fine job of doing that. But for me, this is definitely the weakest LarryBoy show or story. You could debate if you actually want to call it a LarryBoy story, because it's not necessarily about LarryBoy anymore. He's a part of the show, but it's nothing to stand out to me. So I would honestly put this in very average. I'm gonna put this like right in front of Robin Good. It's nothing special to me personally. I think the powers, though, are cool. I will say, like, a few standouts, though. Like, the powers of the superheroes are cool, Like, I do like that Junior actually has to, after all the time and the lessons he's learned in being in the LarryBoy universe, being captured by a fib, telling rumors, and then all of a sudden, he actually wasn't even really in Bad Apple, now I think about it. He was, like, in the prologue, and that was really it. Or for, like, the teaser trailer, and that was it. He just bought some chocolate. And then he's back in this one as, like, a full-on role again, and he comes full circle as being a superhero, right? But then he also has to learn the whole lesson again about fear. So I don't know. It's recycled to me, but there's a few cool things about it. The villain is very forgettable. It's like the least memorable villain to me compared to Fib, Rumor Reed, or even Apple as well. Like, the Bad Apple was much more menacing than the Freeze guy. I forget his name right now. Dr. Flurry, I think it's called. But I don't know. For me, it just wasn't it. Even when I saw this as a kid. I'm not talking about this as an adult perspective. I'm actually saying this from a kid perspective. I really didn't like it. And again, this is the same thing with LarryBoy too. They treat him more like he's like I don't know. He's not as heroic as I want him to be, I understand he's a kid superhero, right? But like, I don't know. It's nothing he does that's cool to me, It's kind of goes back to the fib treatment, where he just sort of like, he's supposed to look cool, but he doesn't do much, you know? Whereas Apple, he actually does a lot, and he still affects the story in an important way while learning a good lesson, you know? So, anyway, moving on from that, Incredible Vegetables is mid, very mid for me. And also, I really don't like the silly song as well. I don't know why they started introducing silly songs for these shows, because that's what made LarryBoy so. That's what made LarryBoy stand out compared to any other VeggieTales, because it was its own thing, you know, right? But now it's starting to have the more same color palette as all the later shows do. You know, it's like all bright and colorful. You know, it's not like it's I don't know. I don't know how to tell you guys. I love my gothic looking LarryBoy, you know, like the big, you know, crazy sunsets, you know, like the spooky looking buildings kind of, you know, or the very Tim Burton inspired style of LarryBoy, you know. I enjoy that one way more personally. And also the silly song itself is just not good in my opinion. It's just a weird gag that runs on for like longer than 2 minutes, and it's not really funny to me. That the superhero song, it's whatever. I don't know. It's honestly, if I dare I say, it's actually a little corny in this the catalog of alive vegetables telling Bible stories and singing songs. I think that this one is the first very corny silly song that I do not like that much. Yeah, that's my thought on it. It's not great. There's a couple cool standouts. Like I like the Powers. I like Thingamabob. He's fun. He's cool. I like that he's actually a superhero now finally. But yeah. Other than that, it's nothing standout. Moving on. The Little House That Stood. This one's fine. It's okay. It's like very average. I would put it in the not good category. I would put it behind Drummer Boy. I think Drummer Boy has some more emotional moments that actually hit you harder. But Little House That Stood, I understand that they're going back to the whole parable thing, you know, with, you know, building your house on sand and building your house on rock, you know, and making a riff on the Three Little Pigs. The thing is, we've seen this before, though. I'm not sure what came out first, either Adventures in Odyssey or VeggieTales with this episode in particular, but this whole idea of, you know, the Three Little Pigs and the parable that Jesus told about, you know, building your house on solid rock it's been done before. So it's nothing really fresh or new for this company, which is a little sad, because something that I love about VeggieTales is that they always take really, really cool ideas and they put a fun spin on it, and they intertwine it with a pop culture franchise, you know, like your Lord of the Beans, you know, or your Wonderful World of Oz, you know, making that the prodigal son along with the Wizard of Oz, which is it's a perfect combination, you know. Whereas this, it's nothing special. Like the lesson is good, but there's nothing to stand out from it. There's a few funny scenes every now and then, you know, like Larry and Lunt together are really fun mixed together, which is always fun. But it's very average to me. It doesn't stand out. I don't remember it very well. The lesson's fine. The CGI actually is starting to look good again in this point. You know, I think it was after Incredible Vegetables where the CGI for some reason started to look better again, much more smoother and polished and like rendered properly compared to, I don't know, whatever the weird era with It's a Meaningful Life and Sweet Pea Beauty. I don't know, it was a weird time where that animation at those two shows in particular did not look great. But now it's back to looking good again, so it's good. But the show itself it's fine. It's another very fine show. Okay, moving on. Mac, Larry, and the Stinky Cheese battle, or whatever it's called. This is another one where I'm afraid to say I have not watched. I think this is only like next to The Penniless Princess. Those are like the only two I'm pretty sure I have actually not seen from this catalog in this main run of the VeggieTales shows. So I'm sorry if you guys like that one. Let me know if it's actually good. I might consider watching it because it looks interesting from what I see in the title card. It looks more like a Viking spoof. You know, maybe during the time when Brave came out. I'm not sure if that was during the same year or not. Everything's much more Scottish looking. I do know the silly song, however, the Scottish kilts, or I think I forgot the actual name of it, but it's where Scooter comes in and he's very proud of Larry singing the Scottish song. I think that's cool. I actually do remember watching the silly song on YouTube at one point when I was younger, and I did actually really laugh a lot. I thought it was really funny. So It goes in the average category. Actually, no, sorry, I can't rank it. I'm sorry, I forgot. I have not seen it, but I do like the silly song though. So let me know if you guys think that Mac Larry is actually a worthy enough show to watch at this point in my life as a young adult. Moving on, Mary Larry and the True Light of Christmas. Okay, I've seen this one once, and it's really hard to remember. I think this is where they got the actor from Duck Dynasty, or the actual, not the actor, just the man himself. I don't watch Duck Dynasty. I don't know really anything about it, but I do know that they got one of like the lead guys or the roles to star in that. This is also a side note I'll say as well. During this point, I think this is also like when like VeggieTales became much more mainstream, but not in the best way. Like where it started to bring in celebrity guests, just because like, hey, look, in the Christian bubble, right? Like, look at this, this celebrity we got, isn't that cool? Like it, because it's a celebrity, I think they did the same thing with the 'Twas the Night Before Easter. I don't know who they got, but they got some other pop star at that point to voice a character, and it's like you don't care. Like I don't know about you guys, but I just don't care about who they get to voice. I rather care about the actual good characters or the story they build or the lessons that they learn in a inventive way, something that's innovative, something that's fresh, that I care about that more than just your random celebrities you get from the Christian circle. If you get Toby Mac to voice a character, to voice a potato, like I don't care. If you make Toby Mac a potato, I don't care. I want the character to be good. This is a classic conundrum that modern day Hollywood is struggling with right now. If you look in The Mandalorian, you bring in Jack Black and Lizzo. It's the same thing. Like, why are you doing this? Make the characters good and make the story stand out well. We do not care about your celebrities just because they're famous people to come in. I know they hinted at a few times with that with the earlier Silver Age. Oh, even in Easter Carol, they had what's her name, Rebecca St. James come in and play as Hope. And they didn't gloss over the fact that it was a celebrity. It's just like, hey, this is a woman who happens to be a really good singer, right? And also, who is a really good singer, and happens to be pretty good at voice acting as well, and gets the point across very well from what the story is trying to convey, right? And they didn't overshadow that it was Rebecca St. James, But now, like in the credits now, they have to always make sure they know, hey, guess what? We got celebrity. This is a big deal, Yeah. Anyway, that's my little rant on the celebrity focus on VeggieTales, which I'm not super happy of, but there's ways to do it well, but make sure you focus on the character first, not the celebrity. There's very, very different line you have to cross and make sure you know how to do it well. Okay, also, side note, while talking about celebrities, I realized how much I really loved the Relient K cover of Pirates Who Don't Do Anything. While I was looking at it right now, I realized that they actually did a whole cover of the song in their Relient K punk rock style, and I think it's awesome. Extra points go to Pirates of the Caribbean. Extra points go to Pirates Who Don't Do Anything, just because Relient K is awesome, and they did an awesome job of the cover. So, good on you for doing a great punk rock cover of Pirates. Okay, moving on. Oh yeah, I didn't even rank this one yet. See, the thing, I can't remember anything about it though. Like, I actually don't know what happens in this. I remember the silly song a bit. I Wrap Myself Up for Christmas, I think. I think that's what it's called. I forget. I don't know. Maybe it's a different one. Is it not good? Because I don't remember a thing about it. It must be fine. I would have to watch it again, honestly. I don't think it's fair to judge it just because I can't remember it from a long time ago. Let's put an average, honestly. It's really hard to judge at this point because I just don't know at all, really. I've seen it once, and that was it. I think it belongs right behind Little House That Stood. I think it's fine. Okay, Veggies in Space. I guess they're doing another Star Trek parody again. And to be fair, I think this is a better Star Trek parody than Are You My Neighbor, for me personally. This is another one I've only seen once, and I forget what happens. That's a common thing with the Golden Age, because none of it is very memorable to me, despite how many times you would watch it. I don't know. It's I guess it's good. I don't even remember what the lesson's about. What is it? It's about sharing? That's what it's about? Okay. Oh, I forgot that. Well, yeah, let's put it back in the average category. Again, if you have some listeners who are or watching this right now who are younger and grew up with these shows and like are much more nostalgic for these, I'm sorry that I'm treating these more harshly. But for me, they're just not for me. I don't know what to tell you guys. Yeah, yeah. I there's not much I have to say on this one. I can't even remember the silly song for this one. What was it? Oh, was it the cowboy one? The space cowboy one, where they get their eyes stuck out and like they sing about getting asteroids. I think that was the one. Yeah, I don't remember that song at all. All I remember was the setting. The setting was cool. I think it was funny getting asteroids, but like that's it. I don't remember any of the songs, any of the plot points at all in the story. So I'm sorry to any fans of Veggies in Space. Okay, moving on. Celery Night Fever. This one's fine as well. I'll say it's fine. Yeah, I'll say it's fine. I think it's much better than these shows here in like the back of the list here for average. I guess it's more of like a riff on getting like the band back together. The classic Beatles story. I don't know. Or I don't know. I guess it's not. I can't remember. I actually can't fully remember what it's based off of. But again, you're doing much more retelling, recycled storytelling of your previous shows that I feel like have done better things. So like a lesson in forgiveness, right? Like apparently, I honestly forgot that actually that's what it's about. I feel like they've done way better shows featuring forgiveness. Like, obviously, like the main show we can obviously think of is God Wants Me to Forgive Them. That's clearly about forgiveness, right? Even though I'm not the biggest fan of that show, I still remember it. And I haven't even seen God wants me to forgive them too many times. I've seen it like a handful, maybe like, I don't know, in my entire life, maybe like 5 or 7 times, most likely. Maybe 10. I think 10 is a safer score, but even still, like that's not a whole lot of things for viewing in your life, right? And I'm not like a very old guy, right? I'm 21, right? So like I've lived a decent amount of years, but not a ton, right? And I've still watched this only 10 times, and which is not a lot in that time span. And I still remember all the plot beats that happen in God Wants Me to Forgive Them. And I don't really remember much of Celery Night Fever. I do remember Khalil playing the drums. I don't know if I'm just biased because I'm a drummer. So I do remember Khalil being funny in that. And I'm very glad he's not coming back as Luffy, so that's also a plus, because Luffy is scary. I think this is a fine one for what I remember it being. There's also like an evil onion, I think, at one point, who tries to tear the band apart, I think if I remember correctly. Yeah, it's a fine story. It's a very fine story. Let's put it in front of Veggies in Space, because I don't remember really anything about Veggies in Space compared to Celery Night Fever, or even Mary Larry. Like I don't remember anything about Mary Larry. There is some stand-up moments. I do remember some musical sequences in Celery Night Fever. Yeah. I think honestly, it's hard to say much about these shows. I'm sorry, guys. If you want me to go in more detail about these ones, I'm sorry. There's not much I can do. This list is also getting very long as well, and this is also getting to become a very long video as well. So I'll try to crop as much as I can to keep you guys entertained. Beauty and the Beat. This is our very last one, official one that I have seen, compared to the silly songs or the ones I have not seen. Beauty and the Beat, huh? See, I remember this one, but I don't remember if I actually loved it, though. I watched this one in my church a long time ago. I don't really remember much about it. And it's always hard to base it off of that point because I don't remember the silly song either. Obviously, like the title is a riff on Beauty and the Beast. You know, okay, that's kind of funny. Beauty and the Beat, vegetable pun. That's kind of funny. Good job. But I don't remember this video at all. That could be on me. But even I have a feeling, even if I did watch it, I wouldn't be taking much away from it because I'm always looking at what the lessons are because I always forget what the lessons are. A lesson in unconditional love. See, like that's a good message. That's really sweet. I just don't remember if it's good or not. So honestly, I guess it's almost like I actually haven't seen it. Like that's how much I don't remember. I remember Veggies in Space more than Beauty and the Beat. Oh man, is it good? I don't know. You guys can tell me. I'll put it in the average category for now. Maybe I have to rewatch it again. But I'm gonna put it there. I'm gonna put it behind Veggies in Space because I don't remember what happens in it. Yeah. If you guys are offended by that, then let me know if I have to fix my ranking. And I'll rewatch it eventually if you actually think it's actually good, if it's worthy to watch again. But the lesson sounds good though. Unconditional love is a very important message for everyone to hear because that is something that our society has forgotten completely. So I'm glad they're tackling that. That is a good thing. And it also sounds pretty fresh compared to more of the recycled plots or the lessons they've told, like forgiveness and sharing. Like that's literally been done before. Done way better, in my opinion, in the earlier shows. So, yeah. Let me know if it's any good to watch. With that being said, guys, I think this is my official listing of the VeggieTales shows because, like I said, I'm not ranking the silly songs because those don't really count in my opinion. Wonderful World of Autotainment to me is kind of the same thing as a whole and sing-along. There's not much of an actual story. It's just a big plot strung together, interluding with the songs, which I don't really count. It's not an official VeggieTales show to me, from what I grade it. And then these two, Penniless Princess and also Mac Larry, I actually don't know what happens. I actually have not seen those shows at all. I can count for these ones. I have seen Beauty and the Beat. I have seen Veggies in Space. I've seen all these ones, but I vaguely remember most of them. I vaguely remember. These ones, though, I actually have not watched, so I can't be a fair judger. I feel like I can have some fair judgment if I have seen it, but I can't remember it because I feel like partially of it can go on me. Sure, it's like I would like to say I have a really good memory when it comes to visual storytelling. I would like to mark myself as that. But if I can't remember anything that happens in these shows, I don't know. I feel like that's more so on the actual video quality itself, and not so much on me. And again, if I actually am wrong, correct me if you think it's actually a worthy show to watch in the comments, or any of these shows really, in the back half here of the average shows. If you think it's good, let me know. But yeah, with that being said, guys, this is the whole show list, the whole tier ranking. So let me know if you guys agree with this list. This one was a really fun one to make. It took me a while. Actually, took me a few days, and apparently Pirates and Jonah got booted off because I had to restart my computer a few times. So if it was missing and it's back here again, I'm sorry for that, but that's my official ranking. Jonah is second place, Sumo the Opera is third, Easter Carol is fourth, Pirates fifth, and of course, Fit from Outer Space is number one for me. I'm always going to have this one as number one for me personally. And the Very Good Catalog is a really good series. I thoroughly enjoy these ones. I can always throw these ones on anytime. I would love for my future kids to watch these ones, like all the ones in this catalog, or even the pretty good ones as well. I would definitely make my kids watch these ones too, if they're interested, because they don't stand out to me as much as the Very Good or Absolute Best, but they still have very heartfelt messages, and they're done in a very entertaining way, even if they don't stand up to me as much as these ones do. And then this category here, it's either just forgettable with some decent messages, either recycled or retold, but it's done in a fine way. And the not good category is it's just not good. I don't know what else to say. It's not great. Really bad though. I'm actually surprised. I didn't feel like any VeggieTales show was actually worthy to put in the really bad list. Because honestly, it's really hard to fault this company for saying it was really bad. Because at the end of the day, they are still a Christian company trying to do their best they can in this crazy time in a very godless generation. You know, trying to be an influence for kids. You know, in the media realm. You know, and I can't really ever fault it for being really bad for that sense. You know, even if their quality of shows aren't great, some of them are, like these ones in my opinion. You know, or even the average ones that are a bit more forgettable for me. You know, they're still trying to do their best in making a point, you know? For me, they don't stand out very well, but I can still respect them so much for, you know, being who they are, you know, or at the time. I guess currently not anymore, really, you know? But at the time, they did their best, and they, you know, they did what they could with these ones, even if I don't think they're that great. Yeah, so it's hard to be that harsh of a critic on these ones because I will always have a gigantic respect for VeggieTales because no other company I know will ever do this kind of thing, you know? And it inspires me to make shows like these one day, you know? In a very, you know, innovative and creative way to help kids in this generation of, you know, craziness. So, yeah, I think that'll be the list for today, guys. Let me know if you agree with this one, and we'll head to the outro. Alright guys, appreciate it. Thanks for watching this video. If you guys want to see more stuff like this, more rankings on a tier list, they're super fun to make for me personally. I enjoy this a lot. Yeah, if you want to see them, let me know down in the comments. Let me know if you agreed with my list. I know I have some hot takes, but some, you know, very normal takes as well. It'll be really fun just so we can go back and forth, alright? So until then, I'll see you guys next time, alright? Peace out.